Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another episode of The Ways We Move. I am your host, Nicolas Zart, and this podcast highlights innovative mobility solutions and the people behind it. But today we're going to do things a little bit differently. I will not have a guest. I'm going to talk about something that I've been researching and studying for a little while now, and it's something that you are probably very familiar with, especially if you have seen a bottle of champagne, and it's about that little thing, the stopper on those bottle, the cork stopper that we usually throw away and don't think twice about it. Well, it turns out that cork is actually a very old material, well known to human societies for the last 5,000 years. It has known sandals, the soles of sandals, made laces out of it. Today, you can find it as wallets. You can find it as full shoes. You can find it even as ties, I've noticed. But you might be intrigued to find out, especially if you have rebuilt an internal combustion engine, piston engine, that gaskets, at least when I did it way back then, they had cork in it. And I always thought, that's weird. That must be a cheap thing. Well, no, not at all. It turns out cork is fantastic. Well, it's fire resistant. It can be condensed, it can be mixed with things, and it also has a it has a negative carbon footprint because the trees are not cut down and there is no waste in the cork industry. So I'm going to turn to my notes so I don't forget anything. The title of the article I wrote, and you can find it on electricairmobility.news, is called Cork, the up-and-coming hero of sustainable, innovative mobility. And I started with a quote from a NASA astronaut, Donald Thomas, who keeps on saying, never leave Earth without cork. That says it all. So, as I mentioned, cork can be found, well, obviously in your shoes, now in your wallet, but also in the automotive world, but railroad industry and the maritime industry, aviation, and of course will play a prominent role also in advanced air mobility, all the way up to space. We're going to start with space and then we're going to come down to Earth again. So NASA uses it as a sort of a shielding for heat. And ESA, the European Space Agency, has used it to coat their antennas so that it helps with EMIs, or electric magnetic interferences, on top of also using it to help with shielding from temperature. What's amazing about cork is, I'm sure many of you have tried it. I know I have. It doesn't burn, which is strange because, well, it's wood, right? It's bark. It should burn, but it doesn't burn. I'm sure many of you have had a bottle of wine in front of a fire and then throw that cork in and it doesn't burn. It chars, it becomes black, but it doesn't burn. And that's because cork can withstand up to 3,992 Fahrenheit of heat, or 2,200 Celsius for those of you in Europe, without disintegrating. So I probably didn't mention this, but I will now. Of course, the epicenter of the cork industry is Portugal. And this is one of the reasons why I do a lot of research on cork, is because, well, I love Portugal. I'm often in Portugal. And a friend of mine showed me a cork forest, which was very interesting. If you've ever seen the tree, it's soft. It's very strange. It's not like a rough tree bark that you would find anywhere else. What was also interesting is the biggest company is out there. It's called Amarin, and that's a Portuguese company. It's the world leader. It has, the biggest share of the cork industry. Spain also produces cork. So does Algeria, Tunisia, Italy, and France. And of course, France is a big importer of cork because guess what? Wine and champagne bottles. In fact, it was Dom Pérignon and I believe Veuve Clicquot that made the little, well, this thing, the cork, the bottle stopper, very important and ubiquitous in the wine industry these days. So as I said, Amarin Cork Composites worked with Thales Alenia Space to develop what they call P-Cork, and that's a silicon cork hybrid, so it's a mashup of composites, and that shields antennas and electronics from EMIs, electric magnetic interferences, plenty of them when you go up in space. And as I said, it can withstand a lot of heat. So it's also been used for the heat tiles of the vehicle when it gets back into the atmosphere. Another thing too is, like I said, you will find it in automotive, in the automotive industry. It's used in electric vehicles. It's probably will be, and if not, maybe we don't know yet. I can't say it, in electric vehicles, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft in AAM, so eVTOLs in advanced air mobility. And it's also used in other industry, but I want to get back to why it's used in the automotive industry. We're going to focus a little bit more now on the EV side of thing, and of course, Tesla is a big user of Cork. And then also another note I made here is I just remembered back in 2014, I think it was 2014, I was one of the early journalists who got to test drive BMW's iDrive's i3 electric vehicle. And if you've ever seen it, you either love it or hate it. I just happen to know the designer, Benoit Jacob, who explained why he did the things he did. And I fell in love with his car. Of course, the i8 even more. But the i3 surprised me, also like the i8. It had Cork inside and it felt good. It felt warm. It was a nice mixture of advanced space age technology, or at least a feel of it, with very warm, down to earth, sustainable, woody feel to it. It's a great car. And of course, I mean, Jacob always does a wonderful job. Benoit, I'm sorry, always does a wonderful job. I hope you're watching, Benoit. I still love all of your cars. So in advanced air mobility, Cork is also an ideal material because it helps not only fireproofing, which is important because think of battery management, thermal systems, but also battery shielding because it shields from EMFs and EMIs. You know, withstand a fire. I know a lot of people are always afraid of lithium battery fires. However, everybody carries iPhones and all the kinds of smartphones, and nobody ever worries about that, right? Yes, I know there are differences, but the point is, battery EV fires are much rarer than gasoline car fires. You want to know why? Because in the US alone, 500,000 gasoline cars go up in smoke every year. That's 500,000 cars a year. Did you ever hear that on the news? Never. But when EV does go up in smoke, yes, that you will hear it. And by the way, 130 to 150,000 gasoline stations go up in smoke every year. You never hear about those things. I don't think I've heard of a EV charging station go up in smoke yet. Could happen, but it hasn't. So just to keep in mind. So in a battery system, such as in an EV and advanced air mobility, in an electric boat, or even an electric train, as far as I'm concerned, it can withstand easily 1,200 centigrade of fire, or about 392, and shield that battery from excessive heat. Here's another thing too. You might have noticed that Cork is pretty cool because you can compress it, you can squash it, and well, it turns out it's a great damping system. So a lot of the engine mounts that you find in cars, trains, boat engines, big boat engines are, well, they use Cork too. It's an important part of the industry, and it's definitely becoming more and more part of the industry. One thing that we are all working on right now, and cross fingers, we will have some very good news for you pretty soon, is we're working on an organ transportation system that uses drones. Now, why is that important? Well, we'll have Scalia, who is a wonderful and amazing gifted surgeon who works in that industry, and he found that organ transportation with helicopters is dicey. There are a lot of vibrations, and same thing with airplanes. However, drones have much less than that. Well, guess what? That will help even more. High-speed rail trains, I've already talked about that, and well, sea vessels. Did you know that Airbus uses Cork as a cryogenic insulator for its hydrogen fuel system testing? That's pretty amazing. So I go through a little bit of explanation about, the superpowers of Cork by the number. You can go to the website and see for yourself. But an interesting thing that I found out, and this is tip my hat to Amarim to do the work that they have done. First of all, this is a 154-year young company, and I want to say young because they're going to continue to progress, right? But in 2011, there was a devastating attack on the cork industry, and this resulted in wines tasting really awful, right? Now, this almost collapsed the entire industry, but they doubled down on their R&D, and today they've proven that cork stoppers are 25% more sustainable than any other synthetic or aluminum alternative. So think about those aluminum screw tops or the other, the silicon-based, whatever other stoppers. Cork is more sustainable, meaning it has less of an impact on our environment than those things. It really makes you think, right? Because I grew up in France where, well, cork was the ultimate, and cork is not 100%, sealing anything. Neither do the others, by the way, but it is still the best system that we can use. So the study that they did with PricewaterhouseCoopers is called, I hope I don't butcher this one, Corticera Amarim's study, the analysis of the life cycle of cork, aluminum, and plastic wine closures. It's really interesting. You have to read it. But basically what they were saying is that overall, concerning the emission of greenhouse gases, each plastic stoppers released 10 times more CO2 alone, whilst aluminum screw caps released 26 times more CO2 than your basic, humble, 5,000-year-old Earth technology cork. I love it. And also another thing that I found out, there's zero waste, right? Although on a big, thick part of the bark like this, they drill a hole and they pump out these guys directly from it, there's a lot of leftover, right? Well, nothing is wasted. In fact, Amarim says 70% of their energy needs are met with the waste of what they get. So the dust, all of that stuff, that's 70% of the energy that they need. As I kind of mentioned before, when you harvest cork, well, you don't cut down the tree and have to wait another 25 years for it to grow, right? That's the amazing part about it. It's available every 9 years. It takes about 9 years for a tree to evolve and to regrow its bark. But also in the meantime, well, I think you all know that trees help us capture carbon dioxide and emit oxygen, which is pretty important these days, right? Despite all the geopolitical hooplas that we're going through right now. Just two other things that I remember also from reading is NASA's Artemis program, by the way, is testing cork for lunar habitat insulation, meaning if most likely when we live on the moon's surface, well, then again, cork will play a role, and I'm willing to bet by extension Mars, and of course beyond. Another one that I found out, which was also pretty interesting, is MIT is embedding sensors with cork for real-time battery health monitoring. Phew, fantastic. But cork really reminds me that sometimes the most efficient systems might not always be found in labs, or at least with synthetically derived petroleum-based materials. Don't get me wrong, this is petroleum based, so is this, so is that, so is the screen behind me, everything. I totally get it, and I'm very happy for it. I love my Alfa Romeos, and I even like my little Volvo that I have outside. But solutions like this, they make me happy. This is something that grows on planet Earth. This is something that works really well. This is something that has a negative carbon footprint. This is something that is very sustainable. And this is also something that employs local people who work and understand this material very well. This is 5,000 years of knowledge passed down from one generation down to another. It's an art form to remove the bark of a cork tree. So cork is an oak, and it serves many purposes. And I'm always very happy when I can find something that brings along sustainability, green technologies with advanced air mobility. I know right now it's probably not the best thing to talk about ESG and sustainability, but to me, sustainability is very different. I don't view it the same way as most people do. It's not just about being green. Being sustainable for me is having a sustainable business practice, meaning if I go and I disappear, the ways we move has to continue. Same thing with my other company, Electric Air Mobility. I'm not indispensable. That's being sustainable. And if I can use something that's efficient, pragmatic, and has less demand on our environmental resources, then yeah, why not? What's the point? Remember, my point is efficiency above and all. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I thought it would be a great little in between all of the different guests that we will have pretty soon on this. The cork, and I think it's just always makes me laugh when I find something like that. Speaking of which, our next guests are going to be Ken Carkland from Pivotal. I've known Ken for a few years. I've actually even flown the simulator of what they now call the Helix products. It used to be called the Opener, and the vehicle, the eVTOL, was called the Blackfly. It's very interesting, very unique. It's a single-seater, and it sort of competes in the arenas of the Jetsons and other eVTOLs, but it has a very special niche market. After that, we'll also talk to a good friend of mine from Sweden who really understands the EV industry out there in Europe and also the energy part of the equation out there. So I had a wonderful talk with him, and I've invited a few more guests. We will also talk about our AAM Masterclass coming up in Rome in September from the 3rd to the 25th. I'll try to leave a link in here. Hopefully I'll remember, but we'd love to have you there. This is specifically for airport professionals, and we want to help them understand and train for advanced air mobility. So we've invited our guests. I've seen them here already: Rex Alexander, Clint Harper, but also Berkeley University, Georgia Tech, of course. I'm hoping, Marilyn, you can make it. You haven't confirmed it, but I'm definitely going to twist your arm. Lufthansa Innovation Hub, and Sergio Chekuta, you know what? I don't even know how to pronounce your last name, Sergio. I've known you for years, but I don't know that. And many other people. We made sure that this was powered by veterans in the industry, world-known, internationally recognized advanced air mobility experts, but also aviation experts. And the reason was simple. We've seen too many fly-by-nights people putting out a lot of trainings when most of that training can be found either for free on the internet or for a modicum on, well, groups like the Vertical Flight Society and so on and so forth. So anyway, check back again soon. We'll have something. Hopefully we'll be able to give you a lot more news. We will have a lot of news coming up before the summer, hopefully way before the summer. But in the meantime, we hope that you've enjoyed this podcast on the amazing benefits of the venerable yet very humble Cork. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave us your comments and tell us what you think about Cork. I mean, Cork, for crying out loud. How many times have I opened up a bottle of wine, taken out that cork thing, and threw it out without even thinking twice about it? Yeah, as a kid, I tried to chew it, try to put a lighter to it. That's about all I did. And I was amazed to find that it does all that much. So tell us, has Cork changed your mind about what it can do for the industry? Let us know, and we'll be happy to include your comment in one of our next article and or video. And if you are an expert in innovative mobilities, please reach out to us. We'd always love to hear from you. Hope you've enjoyed this. My name is Nicolas Zart, and I am always very happy to do these podcasts. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and if you can, please support us on Buzzsprout until I get my Patreon site up and running. One of these days, between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I think I'll have time then. Thank you. Bye-bye.